Stephanie from Minnesota.
That's Maine.
Hi, what would you like to talk about?
Hey.
Yeah, Maine, the great state of Maine. Well, we're going to circle back to where we started this conversation, which is to say, explaining being trans to cis people. And I've been doing it for 23 years. And it's changed a bit over time. It's. I think that I don't know about. I can't speak for anyone else, but I think the most important thing for cis people to understand is that trans people are first of all human beings, that they have a different life experience, that their life experience may not be a unitary one, that that just as any species of human or any type of human has a varied experience. We all have varied experiences too, and trans is just one little part of it. And I think that in my experience, I've known I was different. I've known it. Well, I didn't have the words for it when I was 3.5, but I've known I was trans since I was 3.5. But I finally came to the realization that I absolutely needed to transition or die at the age of 44. I'm now 67, and my experience has been with in going through that whole process has been one of how do I put it? Just living my life as best I could. And one of the things I want to mention, especially to Lucas, is that he was speaking of how uncomfortable he was seeing an obviously trans woman in a place. He should realize that probably that obviously trans woman was as uncomfortable as he was. Because most of us, I think, as we go through the process of transition, are going through a process of growing and going through a process of coming to know ourselves. And I think that maybe if we all could sort of get to know each other, get to know trans people, get to know cis people, and recognize that we're all just people, and do it from the point of view of a good heart, there'd be an awful lot less controversy, a lot less trouble.
Yeah.
I'll let you weigh in on that before we go on and discuss, but...
Sure. So I totally hear where you're coming from, Stephanie, and on a certain level, I agree with you, and I definitely think what you said about like the trans woman who Lucas saw at the grocery store was probably also very uncomfortable. I just got done talking to Matt for a video for him about how I spent like almost an hour for like multiple days where I would drive to the grocery store and I would try to summon the courage to go in, and I would just sit there trying to will myself to walk in the grocery store despite knowing that people would probably look at me and think I looked like a man in a dress. I mean, I didn't probably wear dresses because I love black jeans, but I would look like a man who was trying to look like a woman, and I thought people would read me, and trying to work through that and work up the courage to be okay with maybe that is the case. But at the end of the day, I still deserve the right to go get my fucking groceries. Um, and while I agree with you that I would love for people to just view us as humans and have respect for us, as a person who's a skeptic, I also I feel like at that level, I would have to accept that when Richard Dawkins compares Rachel Dolezal to trans people, that's a valid comparison. But because I am a skeptic, I feel like I'm able to dismiss that as what it is, which is a terrible attempt and a flawed comparison to make trans people look like we're people who are just pretending, because there's a wealth of evidence supporting the existence of trans people and that we don't have a choice in who we are or why we are trans. We just are. Whereas there's no such evidence that exist to support an identity like a transracial identity. Like, and if there were, I think there would totally be up for a conversation about the comparisons. But currently, there
Yeah.
isn't. But I agree. I
Yeah,
wish we could have it more on a human to human level, but I just think that's kind of not where we're at currently. So I prefer to
I
take the
agree, and we
empirical
haven't.
approach.
Yeah, I agree, and we haven't been there for a long time, which is why my emphasis, or at least I was trying to make the emphasis that we're people, and in my private life, you know, in my own life, this is before trans discourse, aside from the sensationalist shit that you saw on TV for forever about trans people being caricatured. And by the way, I think that Dawkins, in his little tweets there, was doing that exact same thing. He's just caricaturing trans people, you know, comparing two caricatures, comparing two things that really didn't have any grounding in reality to each other. I mean, they were sort of, Dawkins was making this shit up in his own head, in my view. What I'm trying to emphasize is that in my life, I've made and kept friends through the course of transition, over the course of building a life post-transition, and a fairly good one, in a male-dominated profession. I'm a professional sailor. You know, I'm a sailmaker. That's what I do for a living. And once people just realize you're just you, it's not that big a deal. And the problem I find, particularly today, is then, I mean, the things I needed to overcome at that point in time were the caricatures on TV, you know, the sensationalism and Oprah Winfrey asking people what's between their legs and crap like this. That's the crap I needed to overcome interpersonally, right? It's like, well, and that's gotten worse. You know, all what I see in the discourse today is more labeling, right? More framing of transness as more othering of transness, and it is rather, you know, it's an unusual experience. But I found that people, while they may not come to fully understand it, nobody can fully understand somebody else's life experience, but people can get to know trans people as actually walking, living, breathing human beings who have value and who can be good friends and who can provide services and you know, and be a contributing part of the human race. Seems that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, I agree with you, Stephanie.
I just want to try to convince folks like Paul that don't be too concerned about not Paul, Lucas. Don't be too concerned about your discomfort, because folks should understand how, you know, discomfort and dysphoria are not that far apart, and the discomfort that trans folk have had to process in their own lives is pretty significant. And if you're uncomfortable with the notion of someone crossing gender boundaries, trust me, so is every trans person who ever walked the face of the planet, because this culture is so insistent on here are those boundaries. They are immutable. You may not cross them.
and like going to what the big takeaway that I have for this, and I've been just sitting back and listening because it's like I have no possible way that I can relate to this, but what I'm taking away from this is one of the best things that I can do is just to make any interaction socially just as easy and relaxing and as simple as possible. It's just treat with kindness and treat with wanting to make the other person feel comfortable and safe, and that if that's all you do, you've already gone a great way, I think, in easing but Arden looks like she's disagreeing.
No.
Oh, okay.
I wasn't disagreeing. I was just going to add that, yeah, I mean, I think we've seen this time and time again, that by far the most effective way to disarm bigotry is to make someone who is a bigot friends with the target of their, prejudice.
Yeah.
So when I know countless conservative people who have been friends with me, because I think I maybe have mentioned, I don't know, I've been talking about life stuff all day long. The people I grew up around were all conservative, and after nowadays, anyway, all of them may still hold a lot of prejudice against trans people, but I'm somehow the exception. They're okay with my transness.
Yeah.
So like it's fascinating
Yep,
how
yep,
knowing
there you
someone
go.
personally can completely
Yep.
disarm someone's bigotry. But thank you, Stephanie. I agree. I think it's good to try to connect on that human level and empathize and know someone personally. And I do think that when you work alongside someone who's trans, you're gonna realize really quickly that they're just a normal fucking person, and that there's nothing about being trans that is particularly interesting besides the ways that it complicates society, and besides the way that like the sort of systemic oppression that we face.
Right. Well,
On a
Stephanie,
personal level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Stephanie, thank you so much for the call. We don't have a lot of time. We got to move on, but if you're going to be in Discord afterwards, please join us there. We're going to be going to Discord afterwards. We have one more call we want to take, but thank you very much, Stephanie, for calling us. Much appreciated.
Oh, thank you very much for taking the call.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Bye, Stephanie.